Hello and welcome to another video from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. Today I'm joined by David to discuss the best captaincy options for game week 7. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. I'm in a different place to usual for two reasons. The first being I'm flat sitting for my brother who's expecting a wardrobe later on. And the second being that I'm in a very much better place fantasy Premier League wise because my wildcard went particularly well this week. Although I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more on the Scoutcast tomorrow.
Yes, I will be very keen to as well, especially because my wildcard went well too. But yes, more of that on the Scoutcast. But yeah, let's look ahead to the best captaincy options. And looking at the fixtures, Man City against Brighton stands out for me. And in particular, this chap here, Sergio Aguero. He does look the standout on paper, but any concerns around Champions League rotation?
Well, it's funny you've gone straight on that line. I noticed on social media this week someone pointed out, it's David Monday on a video with Fantasy Football Scout if he goes on about Aguero being rotated. And I guess I should be quite proud of that because, to have that reputation, it's always at the back of my mind. And I think quite rightly so. I mean, in the last two matches, he's not completed 90 minutes. There seems to be this knock that he's playing with. It's not bad enough for him not to play, but certainly not good enough for him to not complete matches. And obviously, of course, with the Champions League, he would probably be managing his minutes anyway. So it's always got to be there at the back of your mind. But yes, he is the guy that I am going to this week. And Man City's fixture is great. I think we can all agree on that. Brighton particularly poor away from home. Manchester City very good at home. But for me, the main reason to go to Aguero is actually more to do with the options elsewhere. We're going to talk about it a little bit later about how people might handle this. But Chelsea versus Liverpool, for me, effectively takes Salah and Hazard out of the equation. Game week 6, we had that awful conundrum of those three players of Hazard, Salah and Aguero. Who do we go for? Even looking at the numbers, in the Captain Sensible article, after spending hours researching that, my conclusion was, I don't know. They're all very, they've all got fixtures, they've all got form, etc., etc. But this week's different. Man City have got a great fixture and Chelsea and Liverpool have a tough one. So we've got to look to Man City. And I suppose, headline option is still Aguero.
Yeah, I was particularly looking at his home record there. So obviously he scored those 3 goals at home to Huddersfield. And then the next home game, Newcastle, he got an assist there. And then 2 assists the following game at home against Fulham. So he does have a track record of delivering. It looks to me, yes, his minutes may be managed. Maybe he'll make 60, 70 minutes. But it looks to me he's going to get returns. That just looks almost guaranteed looking at his home record there. You mentioned Liverpool and Chelsea. We will come to them later. And they take out some captaincy options, we feel. But there is this chap, Harry Kane, who could be moving into that equation. In particular, he started to look very impressive against Brighton in terms of underlying stats. Now, I know people still think he's a bit off, but of course he did score. And I noticed he had 5 attempts, 5 all in the box. This is great. This is great for a centre forward. And 4 on target. That's fantastic. So what do you think of Kane? Could Kane be the shrewd captaincy pick for game week 7?
Yeah, it's a little bit worrying. We've been talking for a few weeks now. We expect that there may be this time when Kane starts to come into the conversation a bit more. And I think based on the numbers that you've just mentioned, recorded away at Brighton, certainly suggest that he might be slowly getting back to his best. Those numbers are more what we'd expect from him. We've seen him drop deep quite a lot this season and be a bit sluggish, basically since his injury at the end of last season. Obviously he's not in my squad, so from a personal perspective, I'm not going to captain him. I'm not going to be making the effort to bring him in. I think that's the tricky thing with it is a lot of people who sort of follow our videos. We generally, a lot of us don't have Kane. So those who do have Kane, then great opportunity to go for someone because I think. As we've sort of mentioned, Salah and Hazard are kind of out of the equation. We think a little bit. Aguero seems to be the go-to, but there's always that worry about rotation. But with Kane, I don't think there is. There's lots of golden rules that people always tout about captains, but there will be a lot of people who will tell you, go for the guy who you think is going to play, going to start at the very least, but also who you think is going to play 90 minutes. And Kane feels like that kind of guy. And with the fixture that they've got. Coming up, it's a good one to have Kane in.
Yeah, away to Huddersfield. That as you mentioned, away to Huddersfield. It's almost like his form was there was such an upturn against Brighton. I didn't mention that it was against Huddersfield. Away to Huddersfield. That's good. I think. and of course they Spurs did really well there last time. Yeah, I think it is. I think there's going to be some difficult decisions ahead around Kane. If he gets a goal or two goals against Huddersfield, we could be seeing a Kane bandwagon there. But a slightly cheaper option that I've heard people mentioning is Richarlison. Now he is another player that with another good fixture there. So he's at home to Fulham. But what about Richarlison? I mean, is that a differential risk too far?
Yes, I think it is. I think it is. I mean, we've been saying for a long time, even before Richarlison got suspended, that he was overperforming his numbers. I mean, last season obviously it was the opposite. Ironically, he was having shots left, right, and centre, and not particularly getting any points to them. A lot of the shots were off target. This season it was 3 goals in the first 3 games, I think it was. And I think that had come from 3 or 4 shots. Basically every time he shot, he scored, but he didn't shoot very often. Obviously the fixture's great. So, I mean, we shouldn't take anything away from the fixture because Fulham are just so terrible at the back. And, just going over the notes from the weekend, that's just gone live on the site this morning at Fulham. The defence is just, it's all over the shop in every sense. They're conceding goals, as we know. But Jokanovic has named a different back four for basically every match that he's played this season. And, Joe Bryan, we thought was going to be the first choice left back, and that would enable Sessegnon to play higher up the pitch. And then Sessegnon's not played, and then he's come back into the team. He's gone into left back. So Joe Bryan has all of a sudden lost his place. Alfie Mawson, as people saw watching that game in the first half, was absolutely dreadful and was substituted at half time. So then they brought Dennis Odoi back on. There's so much wrong with that Fulham defence that I do think that Everton can do well in that fixture. But, I thought, they had some chances to score against Arsenal, but Richarlison, I didn't see a great deal that would make me want to captain him in that particular game. He's possibly a bit rusty because he's not played any competitive football. Interestingly enough, even though Everton have a great fixture here, if I'm looking at this fixture, if I want a differential captain anyone, it's probably Mitrovic. Because we always like to say that form trumps fixture with captains sometimes. So Mitrovic is in great form, and he scored 5 goals this season. And if you have a look at just some of the numbers over the last 4 game weeks, Mitrovic and Schürrle are actually joint top in the whole league for shots on target with 8. So and Everton's defence, I'd argue, is almost as bad as Fulham. So actually, differential in that game, I'd go Mitrovic.
That's a really good point, because also Everton's defence, what about Fulham's defence? Everton's defence is also woeful and is also chopping and changing, mainly because of injuries. So they've looked far from secure as well. That looks like it's got a lot of goals. I'm not a Richarlison owner. I do think he's a good player to own, but I think you're right. I think it's a step too far to captain him. But yeah, Mitrovic, that is intriguing. I mean, looking back at the fixtures here, another fixture that interested me was West Ham at home to Manchester United, mainly because of Romelu Lukaku, who's got an amazing track record against the Hammers. He's scored 11 goals against them for a number of clubs that he's played for, but 9 of those in the Premier League. He's also had 4 assists in the Premier League against them. So it seems like a sure thing. I mean, it's not 100% guaranteed, but it seems as close to a sure thing as you can get there. But what do you think about that fixture? In particular, West Ham's quite resilient display against Chelsea.
Yeah, there's lots of talking points on this particular topic. I think to start with the subject of goals record, I think it can be dangerous to fall into that trap sometimes, and I have done that in the past. I remember backing Wayne Rooney at the start of a season when I think he had Newcastle, Spurs and Villa in the first 3 teams he absolutely loved scoring against, and he didn't score against any of them. But the difference with Lukaku, which is obviously why we're talking about him, is not only has he got a good record against West Ham, he's got a very good record against all the teams he's played so far this season. I mean, we've looked in the last couple of weeks at how he's doing compared to that purple patch he had at the start of last season when he was in 50% of teams, and he's outperforming himself underlying numbers-wise. I've mentioned Mitrovic and Schürrle as the top 2 for shots on target in the last 4 game weeks, they're joint top. Second place is Lukaku with 7, so he's only 1 behind. He's had more shots on targets in the last 4 weeks than Kane, than Salah and Aguero and Hazard as well. So it feels like a perfect matchup in that sense, because he's got history against this team and he's doing very well. He's in form at the moment. As for West Ham's resilient display against Chelsea, West Ham are definitely one of those teams that always, I feel like they up their game against teams like Chelsea or Spurs especially. I can remember times in the last couple of years when they've been identified as a team to absolutely back for Chelsea or Spurs or one of the other London teams, and and then West Ham are a spanner in the works. But then the defensive numbers haven't been great this season, so I don't think the fact that they kind of up their level against a team that they hate basically and love to play against, I don't think that is good. That doesn't tell me that they're going to go and be the same away at Old Trafford, because I think it's a very different prospect, that particular match.
Yeah, no, I mean, I look at that. I do quite like those when a player really loves to score against the side. But I was wrong last week. Giroud also likes to score against West Ham. Had 5 goals against them, and he did absolutely nothing. In fact, he got hauled off. He was so abject there. I do quite like that fixture. And one of the reasons we're looking at players like Lukaku for these types of games that we perhaps might not before, because you mentioned it earlier. We've got the Chelsea-Liverpool game. That's the Saturday evening kick-off. Now, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, do they really cancel each other out, or does it make their options better? Could be quite an open game.
Yeah, I hate trying to call these games. I really do. There's so many reasons. Something's got to give effectively, because there are two teams that have defended pretty well so far this season, but there are also two teams who have attacked very well, largely speaking. Like I said, I think that the West Ham game for Chelsea is a bit of an outlier in the sense that they're not going to be playing in a London derby away from home every week. So something's got to give. I can't see it being a 0-0 because both sides have great attacking players, but at the same time I can't see it. I could see the case for saying, well, there's not going to be many goals, because they both got very good defences. I think. Yeah, it's a tough one. And Liverpool away as well. So, if it was at Anfield, I think I'd be more inclined to say back Salah. But, when Salah went to Stamford Bridge last season, it was a 1-0 win for Chelsea and Salah didn't do anything. So, I just think there's too much uncertainty about that fixture. I know we've talked in the past about sometimes, perhaps maybe erroneously avoiding a big game because we assume that the big players won't perform, when in actual fact they end up performing anyway. But for me, there's just so many factors, conflicting things that get in the way of each other that just put me off it, I guess. And because Man City have got that great fixture, I think that we're lucky in a sense that they are playing a good fixture this week, because we don't have to make the big decision if we've got a very nice, obvious alternative in someone like Aguero.
So I mean, the way it's probably going to shape up in our captain poll and just the general sense is that most people will probably go for Aguero. I mean, his ownership's over 50% now. So those who own him will probably captain him. But yeah, there are some intriguing options there. That's why people are starting to look at Richarlison, Lukaku and Harry Kane as well. The early signs of the Harry Kane we know. But as you said, that Chelsea-Liverpool game, that really does, it puts so much uncertainty over so many good options, particularly Hazard and Salah there, and of course Mane comes into that equation. But yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one this week, but I think we've decided it's going to be Aguero there. But for now, David, thanks so much for chatting and good luck with the game week.
Yeah, and to you too.